The medieval tavern. Food, drink, and the nightly stories. Entering the tavern, a place for everyone. Imagine stepping into a medieval tavern after a long day's journey, the weight of your pack and the dust of the road still clinging to your clothes. As you open the door, a wave of warmth hits you, an inviting contrast to the chill of the evening air outside. The smell of roasting meat, bread, and stale ale fills your senses, mixing with the faint, pungent odor of sweat and firewood. The flickering light from a dozen torches on the walls casts shadows over a room filled with chatter and laughter. The sounds are immediate, the clink of tankards being raised in cheer, the hum of conversations, the occasional burst of laughter, and the scraping of wooden chairs across the stone floor. In one corner, a group of farmers shares stories of the harvest, while nearby a pair of traveling merchants argue over prices and deals. A minstrel strums a lute in the farthest corner, his tunes providing a soundtrack to the evening's activity. It's a lively scene, but beneath it all there's a sense of comfort, a welcome respite from the outside world. You approach the bar, where a gruff innkeeper, his face weathered by years of work, looks up from cleaning a mug. Without a word he pours you a drink, the ale dark and foamy. It's not the finest drink in the land, but here, in this dimly lit tavern, it's all you need. The warmth of the ale spreads through you, chasing away the chill, and for a brief moment you forget about the journey that brought you here. The tavern is not just a place to drink, it is a social hub, a place where people from all walks of life come together to share their stories. You can't help but notice the men and women around you. There's a knight in his armor, a merchant with a pouch of coins at his waist, and a peasant with rough hands who's just come from the fields. The tavern serves them all, each of them with a different reason for seeking refuge here. Some come for the drink, others for the company, and some simply to escape the weight of their lives for a few hours. But there is something else in the air tonight, something that sets this tavern apart from others you've visited. It's the story. The tavern is filled with tales of distant lands, battles won and lost, the exploits of knights and thieves, the triumphs and tragedies of the common folk. You can overhear bits of conversation, snippets of lives lived in far-off places. These stories aren't written in books, they aren't recorded in history. Instead, they live in the mouths of those who share them. They are the heartbeat of the medieval tavern, and they are passed from one drinker to the next. You sit down at a table near the fire, the crackling warmth of the flames pulling you in. You listen to the stories as they unfold, the tales weaving a picture of a world that is both foreign and familiar. There's a strange comfort in hearing the hardships of others. The common folk in the tavern speak of their struggles, of the harvest, of the weather that's too hot or too cold, of the lords who control their land. And then there are the travellers, the ones with far-flung tales of their journeys, who speak of cities you've never seen, of roads less travelled, of distant kings and their courts. For a moment it's as if you are not just a traveller passing through, but part of a larger world, a world that exists only in the flickering light of the tavern's hearth. The rituals of the tavern. The evening wears on, and the tavern's atmosphere grows thicker with the passing hours. The air becomes heavy with smoke from the fire, the tang of sweat, and the sharp scent of spiced wine. The clink of tankards, the murmur of voices, and the occasional burst of laughter fill the room. It's a lively place, but also one where every interaction seems to follow a set of unspoken rules. There is a rhythm here, a flow that has existed for as long as the tavern has stood. You watch as the patrons of the tavern slip into their familiar roles. The soldiers sit in one corner, their rough faces illuminated by the firelight as they share tales of battles fought and won, of lands conquered. They drink heavily, their laughter growing louder with each round, and their camaraderie is palpable. It's clear they find solace in the familiarity of each other's presence, and perhaps in the alcohol that loosens their tongues. It's a world of brotherhood and tales of glory that, for a brief time, shields them from the harsh realities outside. In another corner, a group of farmers sits, their faces worn from a day of labour. Their voices are quieter, and their talk is of the land, of the coming harvest, of crops that need tending, of the unpredictable weather that has made their work all the more difficult. The drink is important, yes, but it is the conversation, the shared understanding of the day-to-day struggles that binds them together. They speak not of battles or victories, but of survival, of making it through the seasons, of weathering the storms, both literal and figurative. Then there are the traders, the ones whose lives revolve around the ebb and flow of goods and currency. They are a different breed entirely, speaking in terms of deals, transactions, and distant places. They speak of merchants they've met on the road, of ports they've visited, of coins exchanged in far-off cities. The stories they tell seem to come from a different world, one that you, as a humble traveller, can only glimpse for a moment before they move on to their next business. The innkeeper moves through the tavern with ease, a figure of quiet authority. He has seen all walks of life pass through these doors, nobles and beggars, soldiers and scholars. His role is simple, yet important. He ensures that the ale never runs dry, and that the fire always burns bright. His presence, steady and reliable, is part of the fabric that makes the tavern what it is. The tavern is his domain, and he understands its rhythms. He knows when to step in and when to let the patrons settle their own dispute. It is the innkeeper's delicate balance of control and laissez-faire that keeps the peace and ensures the tavern remains a place where all are welcome, even if they come from worlds so vastly different from one another. As the night continues, you are drawn into conversations with strangers. You share tales of your travels, but they are little more than curiosities to those who live here. Their lives fixed to the land or to the tavern itself. They listen, polite but distant, as you recount the places you've seen. Theirs are simpler stories of family, of home, of the daily labor that takes up the majority of their time. They ask questions, but there is an undercurrent of something else in their eyes, a curiosity about the world beyond their own lives, but also a quiet acknowledgement that they will likely never leave the small circle they inhabit. As the night deepens, the tavern fills with a sense of community, a shared understanding of life's struggles and fleeting joys. The tales grow longer, the songs louder, and the laughter more raw. The small disputes that arose earlier in the evening have faded away, replaced by the camaraderie that the tavern seems to foster in its patrons. You can feel the weight of history in these walls, not the grand history of kings and battles, but the history of the everyday people whose lives are built on the quiet rituals of survival and celebration. The end of the night, and the quiet departures. The night wears on, and the atmosphere in the tavern shifts. The laughter has subsided into quieter, more reflective conversation. The fire is still crackling in the hearth, but it's growing dimmer now, the flames dying down after hours of providing warmth to the room. The sounds of the tavern are different now. The clink of tankards has become less frequent, and the voices are lower, more intimate. The early revelers have left, and those who remain are settling into the quiet rhythms of the night. As you sip the last of your drink, you glance around the room. The tavern, once full of life, now feels smaller, more personal. The farmers who spoke of crops and the merchants who spoke of distant cities are now just people, sitting together in the flickering light. They are no longer defined by the roles they played during the day, but by the shared experience of the tavern, the warmth, the stories, and the camaraderie that comes from being in this space together. The innkeeper moves through the room, checking on the few remaining patrons. His eyes are tired but kind, and he offers a gentle nod as he passes by. You notice the careful way he moves, as if he is part of the very fabric of the tavern itself, always present, always watching, ensuring that the space remains a refuge for all who enter. The tavern is his domain, and he tends to it like a garden, nurturing the bonds formed between strangers and providing a place for people to rest, to eat, to drink, and to forget, even if just for a moment, the demands of the outside world. You rise from your seat, ready to leave. The night air is cool against your face as you step out of the tavern, the weight of the silence outside striking you after the warm buzz of the evening. The world beyond the tavern is quiet, dark, and still. The sounds of the village are distant now, muffled by the night. The streets are empty, and you are left with only the faint glow of the moon to guide you as you make your way through the shadows. You pause for a moment, looking back at the tavern, the light still flickering from within, casting long shadows on the walls. Inside, life continues. Another round of stories, another round of laughter, and yet, the world outside carries on in its own rhythm. The tavern, for all its warmth, is just a brief respite, a small pause in the flow of time. For those who pass through, it is a place of connection, a place of release. But tomorrow, it will begin again, as it always does, and the stories of tonight will fade into memory, replaced by the stories of another evening. As you continue your walk through the quiet streets, you reflect on the lives of those you shared the night with, the farmers, the merchants, the soldiers, all of them tied together by the simple act of fatting at the tavern. Their lives too are marked by the ebb and flow of the seasons, by the rhythms of work, survival, and the occasional celebration. They may never be remembered in history books, their names never etched into the grand narratives of kingdoms and conquests, but they are the lifeblood of this world, and their stories, however small, the hidden world of the blacksmith, hammering life into the empire, the forge and the hammer. The day begins before the sun rises, as it always does. The air is crisp, tinged with the smell of burning coal and the faintest scent of iron. You walk through the dirt paths that lead to the forge, your hands already feeling the familiar calluses from years of work. The blacksmith's life is one of fire and steel, of constant motion and unspoken rhythm. The heat from the forge is always intense, but it is a warmth you've come to know and rely on. The forge is your world, its walls blackened by soot, its air thick with smoke, and its sounds filled with the rhythmic ringing of hammer on anvil. The fire inside the forge crackles, casting a glow that dances on the walls and highlights the tools that you've come to know so well. The tongs, the hammers, the bellows, and the anvil, where so many pieces of metal are shaped into something useful, something vital. Without your work, the world outside would not turn. The sword that a soldier carries into battle, the plough that tills the soil, the nails that hold the walls of a house together, all are made in places like this one. You start the fire with practiced ease, the heat slowly building as the coal begins to smoulder. The sound of the bellows working fills the air, and soon the fire is hot enough to melt the metal you've prepared. The first piece of iron is thrown into the flame, the heat making it glow a dull red. As the metal softens, you take it out with tongs and place it on the anvil, where the hammer comes down in a steady rhythm. Each strike is precise, each motion purposeful. The work is tiring, but there is a deep satisfaction in it, a connection between the blacksmith and the metal, between the hands and the fire. The village around you stirs to life, the sound of the morning activities beginning to fill the air. Farmers head to the fields, traders open their stalls, and children run through the streets, their laughter echoing. But the forge is a world apart from it all. The blacksmith's work is solitary, bound to the rhythm of the fire, the anvil, and the hammer. You don't work for fame or fortune. You work because this is what you do. The empire relies on men like you to forge the tools of everyday life. The pieces you make will go on to serve in ways that most people will never understand. A sword will be wielded in battle, a plough will break the soil, and nails will hold together the homes where families live. Every piece you create has a purpose, even if it is never recognized. The villagers come to you for what they need, whether it's a new plough, a repaired pot, or a set of horseshoes, and you provide it. In exchange, you receive coins or trade, but the real payment comes in the satisfaction of knowing that your work is essential, that your forge is one of the many quiet engines that keeps the world turning. The Forge of Empire. The day continues as the heat from the forge presses in around you. Sweat drips down your brow, but the work must go on. The anvil is your constant companion, and with each swing of the hammer the metal takes shape. It's a dance, a rhythm passed down through generations. There is little glory in the act itself, but it is the foundation of everything around you. The empire grows through the work of men like you, quiet, steady and essential. As the sun rises higher in the sky, you pause for a moment to look around. The forge is filled with the tools of your trade, tongs, hammers, chisels, and the ever-present fire. Your hands, though worn and calloused, move with precision. You know this work intimately. You know how the metal will bend, how it will cool, and how it will shape itself into something useful. The village continues to bustle outside, its rhythm unchanged by the toil within your forge. The farmers return with the day's harvest. The traders haggle for their goods, and children run freely through the streets. But you remain focused on the task at hand. The world around you, while it moves forward, is nothing more than a backdrop to the work you are doing. The tools you create, the objects you shape, are the threads that bind everything together. You think about the larger world, the empire that stretches far beyond the village, reaching from city to city, from province to province. The soldiers who march with swords you have forged. The merchants who carry goods across the empire with the carts you've equipped. The farmers who sow their seeds with plows you've made. All of them rely on the work that happens in the shadows of the forge, yet they will never know your name, and they will never see the sweat and effort that goes into each creation. They only know the final product, the finished tool, the weapon, the implement. The true work, the creation, is unseen, hidden beneath layers of history and time. As you shape the metal, you think of the long line of blacksmiths who have come before you, each one contributing to the empire in their own way. The blacksmith has always been a central figure in the story of civilization, from the first hammer struck against stone to the forging of iron weapons that built empires. The blacksmith has been there, creating the tools that drive progress. Yet, despite the importance of this craft, it remains largely anonymous. History remembers the kings, the generals, the conquerors, but the blacksmiths, the humble artisans who make it all possible, are often forgotten. The work continues and the day wears on. The fire in the forge crackles and pops as you throw in more coal, keeping the heat high. Each strike of the hammer sends the metal flying, shaping it into the tool it is meant to be. There is little time for rest. The work must be done, and the people outside are waiting for their tool. The legacy of the forge. The day fades as the light outside dims. The forge's fire, the only source of warmth and illumination in the growing darkness. The work continues as always, the rhythm of the hammer and anvil steady in its pace. But tonight, something feels different. The fire seems to burn a little brighter, the metal a little sharper. You can't quite explain it, but there's a sense of something beyond the work, something that connects you to the generations of blacksmiths who have come before you, and to the future generations that will carry on this quiet legacy. You look around the forge, taking in the familiar tools, the tongs, the hammers, and the anvils, all pieces that will continue to shape the world, even after you've gone. The smoke from the fire lingers in the air, the scent of burning coal mingling with the smell of the iron. It's a smell you've grown used to, a scent that is now as much a part of you as the calluses on your hands. You think about the people who use the tools you create, the soldiers who march with swords forged in your fire, the farmers who till the land with plows crafted by your hands, the builders who use nails and hammers shaped by you to construct homes and fortresses. They don't know your name, they don't know the sweat that has gone into creating their tools, but without you, their lives would be more difficult, less efficient. The empire is built on the work of men like you, quietly shaping the world, one hammer strike at a time. As you finish the final piece for the day, you sit back, the weight of the work lifting from your shoulders. You're exhausted, your muscles aching, but there's a sense of pride in what you've accomplished. The work may be hard, the recognition may be non-existent, but it is essential. The tools you've forged are part of the infrastructure of life itself. Whether it's a sword for a soldier or a simple farming implement, you know that your creations enable others to live, to work, and to build. You think about the empire, its vast reach stretching across continents, and how even in the farthest corners of the world, the products of your work will be felt. The small skirmishes and daily struggles of the common people will continue, and you, though forgotten, will remain a part of it all. Your legacy, like the iron you shape, will last beyond your time. As the fire in the forge begins to die down and the night settles around you, you realize that your role, though small in the grand scheme of history, is more important than you've ever given it credit for. You may never be celebrated, never remembered, in the stories of kings and battles, but the work you do sustains the world. The tools you create are the backbone of progress, and in a way they carry a part of you into the future. A day in the life of a peasant, life under the feudal system, the early morning struggle. The rooster crows loudly, its sound carrying through the cold morning air, rousing you from your sleep. The cottage you share with your family is small and cramped, the wooden walls thin and worn from years of use. The fire from the hearth still flickers weakly, offering little warmth against the chill of dawn. You rise, stiff from the hard floor, your back aching from another night spent on straw and blankets. The world outside is still dark, and the morning mist rises from the ground, curling around the edges of the crops in the field. The smell of damp earth and wet grass fills your lungs as you step out into the morning. The first light of day creeps across the land, casting long shadows over the village. The roads are muddy from the night's rain, and the wind is sharp. You step carefully, avoiding the puddles, as you make your way toward the fields. The lord of the manor owns the land, but you are the one who works it, and you are not alone. Around you, other peasants begin their morning chores. Some are heading to the mill, while others are already bending to the task of gathering firewood or tending to animals. The air is filled with the sound of early labor, hoe against soil, the bleating of sheep, the clatter of a cart. Life, it seems, is always a race against time, a constant battle against the weather, the land, and the demands of the Lord who owns everything. Your work begins almost immediately, without question. It is a life of routine. You tend to the animals first, making sure the cows are milked, the chickens fed, and the horses are cared for. These tasks, though essential, feel unimportant when measured against the greater weight of the work you will learn. For you, the day will not be defined by the animals you care for, but by the hours spent toiling in the fields, under the watchful eyes of the Lord's men, ensuring the crops grow and the harvest comes in. The feudal system governs every part of your life. The Lord owns the land, and you are bound to it, tied to your family's small plot, working it for the Lord in exchange for protection and the right to live on the land. There is little freedom for someone like you. You have no say in the way the land is worked, in the taxes that are levied, or in the conditions that come with your life. You are but one small cog in the vast machinery of the manor, and your work is essential to its success. Without your labor, the crops would fail, and without the crops, there would be no food for the Lord or his soldiers, no income for the village. And so you work, not because you want to, but because you have to. The weight of the land. The sun rises higher, the warmth slowly spreading across the village, but the work continues unabated. You have already spent hours in the field, the soil heavy beneath your feet, your hands raw from the repetitive motions of tilling and planting. The life of a peasant is defined by the land, its demands constant and unyielding. It is not just about the work, it's about survival. The land provides, but it also takes. The crops must grow, the animals must be fed, and everything must be completed before the next season arrives, before the harvest can be collected. The lord of the manor, with his large estate, has little regard for the toll the work takes on you. He comes around once in a while, sending his steward or soldiers to ensure that everything is being done according to his wishes. He doesn't care if you're tired, if the soil is too hard, if the weather has been unkind. The harvest must come in, the rent must be paid, the taxes must be met. There is no room for excuses in the feudal system, and you, like the others in the village, are bound to it. Today, you are working in the barley field, the ground stubborn beneath your tools. Each movement requires more effort as the soil fights against your plough, the heavy weight of the task slowly dragging on your body. You pause for a moment, wiping the sweat from your brow. The sun is high now, its heat bearing down, but you cannot afford to stop. Not now. The barley must be sown, for it is the lifeblood of your survival, and without it, there will be no bread for the winter. Your family depends on you, as does the entire village. There is no room for weakness, no time for rest. The labor is grueling, but you are used to it. You have been working these fields since you were old enough to hold a hoe, and there is no other life you know. Your father worked these fields, and his father before him. The land has been passed down through generations of peasants, each of them living under the same weight of obligation, of labor, of duty to the land and to the Lord. The sound of the wind rustling through the barley, the smell of the earth as you turn it over, and the rhythm of the plough are all familiar. They are the backdrop of your life. This is not a life of great adventures or stories of glory. It is a life of survival. The work may be hard, but it is honest, and it is necessary. Without it, the village would not survive. Without the peasants, the manor would fall into ruin. You glance at the horizon, where the Lord's castle stands tall, distant, and imposing. It is a symbol of power, of authority, of the unspoken rules that govern every aspect of your life. The castle seems to watch over the land, a constant reminder that no matter how hard you work, you will never truly own the land you toil on. You are bound to it, not by choice, but by necessity. The Lord's lands are vast, and your small plot is just a fraction of it. Yet it is here, in the soil you till, that your life is made. The weight of the land. The sun rises higher, the warmth slowly spreading across the village. But the work continues unabated. You have already spent hours in the field, the soil heavy beneath your feet, your hands raw from the repetitive motions of tilling and planting. The life of a peasant is defined by the land, its demands constant and unyielding. It is not just about the work, it's about survivors the land provides, but it also takes. The crops must grow, the animals must be fed, and everything must be completed before the next season arrives, before the harvest can be collected. The lord of the manor, with his large estate, has little regard for the toll the work takes on you. He comes around once in a while, sending his steward or soldiers to ensure that everything is being done according to his wishes. He doesn't care if you're tired, if the soil is too hard, if the weather has been unkind. The harvest must come in, the rent must be paid, the taxes must be met. There is no room for excuses in the feudal system, and you, like the others in the village, are bound to it. Today you are working in the barley field, the ground stubborn beneath your tools. Each movement requires more effort, as the soil fights against your plough, the heavy weight of the task slowly dragging on your body. You pause for a moment, wiping the sweat from your brow. The sun is high now, its heat bearing down, but you cannot afford to stop. Not now. The barley must be sown, for it is the lifeblood of your survival, and without it, there will be no bread for the winter. Your family depends on you, as does the entire village. There is no room for weakness, no time for rest. The labor is grueling, but you are used to it. You have been working these fields since you were old enough to hold a hoe, and there is no other life you know. Your father worked these fields, and his father before him. The land has been passed down through generations of peasants, each of them living under the same weight of obligation, of labor, of duty to the land and to the Lord. The sound of the wind rustling through the barley, the smell of the earth as you turn it over, and the rhythm of the plough are all familiar. They are the backdrop of your life. This is not a life of great adventures or stories of glory. It is a life of survival. The work may be hard, but it is honest, and it is necessary. Without it, the village would not survive. Without the peasants, the manor would fall into ruin. You glance at the horizon, where the Lord's castle stands tall, distant, and imposing. It is a symbol of power, of authority, of the unspoken rules that govern every aspect of your life. The castle seems to watch over the land, a constant reminder that no matter how hard you work, you will never truly own the land you toil on. You are bound to it, not by choice, but by necessity. The Lord's lands are vast, and your small plot is just a fraction of it. Yet it is here, in the soil you till, that your life is made. The hidden lives of medieval merchants, trading and surviving. The start of a long journey. The marketplace is alive with activity as the first light of dawn breaks through the horizon. The sounds of carts rolling over cobblestone streets, the clatter of hooves on the ground, and the calls of merchants selling their wares fill the air. You, a traveling merchant, have just arrived in the bustling market town, your cart loaded with goods from distant lands. The sun is barely rising, but the market is already full of life. This is your world, the streets where commerce thrives, where trades are made, and where your livelihood depends on the deals struck between you and countless others. You stand at the edge of the market square, watching the familiar scene unfold. You see the familiar faces of other merchants, some from nearby towns, others from far-off regions. Each of them has something to sell: spices, textiles, pottery, weapons and tools. The air is thick with the scent of dried herbs, fresh bread, and the occasional whiff of livestock. The marketplace is a place of both commerce and chaos, where the mundane and the extraordinary meet. Your cart, drawn by a pair of sturdy horses, is filled with fine cloth, glassware and exotic spices. items from faraway lands that you've gathered over the course of your travels. These goods, though commonplace to you, are treasures to the people here, and the market is a place where you can turn your wares into coin. But it is not as simple as it seems. The competition is fierce, and the deals often come with strings attached. In this world, trust is a fragile thing, and every transaction is a balance of risk and reward. You begin setting up your stall, arranging your goods neatly so that they catch the eye of potential buyers. The quality of your wares is important, but so is the way you present them. In a world where words are as valuable as goods, presentation is everything. A buyer's first impression can make or break a deal. As you arrange your goods, you glance around the market, sizing up the competition. You notice the merchant across from you. He has a similar selection of goods, but his prices are higher, and his stall is less organized. You know that if you are to make a sale, you will need to do more than just offer a good product. You will need to sell it with charm, with persuasion, with the kind of salesmanship that can turn a passing glance into a final purchase. As you settle into your routine, you observe the rhythm of the market. There are familiar faces, regulars who come every week to buy and sell, and then there are newcomers like you, looking to make their mark in this busy, competitive world. The market, though chaotic, has its own order, and it is up to you to find your place within it. The locals know the rhythms, the times when the market is most active, the hours when the best deals can be struck. For those like you, the traveling merchants, every visit to a new town is a gamble. Some towns are more prosperous than others, some have wealthier buyers, and some are more generous with their coin. The art of the deal. The day begins to stretch into the afternoon, and the market has reached its peak. The streets are crowded now, and the noise of haggling fills the air. You can hear the constant flow of negotiations, the clinking of coins, and the occasional shout of a merchant trying to attract a buyer's attention. You watch as customers examine your goods, their hands brushing over the fabrics, picking up the spices, and carefully studying the glassware. Every moment counts. The more attention you get, the more likely it is that someone will decide to make a purchase. You've learned over the years that the art of selling is more than just offering a product. It's about creating a story, an experience, a reason for the buyer to feel that what you have is worth their coin. You approach a potential customer, an elderly woman dressed in fine clothing, and begin to speak of the cloth you're selling, its quality, its origins, the craftsmanship behind it. You speak slowly and with confidence, weaving a story of distant lands and skilled weavers, making the piece more than just fabric. It's an artifact of another world, a piece of something greater. She listens intently, nodding along as you speak. It's a skill you've honed over time, knowing when to speak, when to be silent, and when to let the product speak for itself. She reaches out to touch the fabric, her fingers tracing the intricate patterns. You can see the shift in her demeanor. She's no longer just a potential customer. She's invested in the story you've told her, and the purchase feels like a foregone conclusion. With a polite smile, she agrees to the price you've set. The deal is struck, and you quickly pack the cloth, securing it with twine and handing it over with a gracious bow. She leaves with her purchase, and you stand there for a moment, basking in the quiet satisfaction of the transaction. But the market waits for no one. You turn back to your stall, eager to catch the next customer. You observe the other merchants around you, their strategies, their presentations. The man selling pottery across from you has a well-organized stall, the pieces laid out to showcase their variety. His prices are reasonable, but it's his demeanor that draws people in. He greets every potential buyer with a smile, making them feel as though they are part of a shared moment. The merchant 2 stalls down is less successful. His goods are of good quality, but his presentation is sloppy, and his negotiations are clumsy. The market is a harsh teacher, rewarding those who know the dance of commerce and punishing those who falter. By the time the afternoon sun begins to lower, you've made a handful of sales, enough to ensure a profitable day, but you know that the real test of your work will come tomorrow. The true challenge of being a traveling merchant is not just the first sale, but the ability to sustain your profits, to keep moving from market to market, and still find success. You cannot afford to settle in one place for too long, and you cannot afford to become complacent. The other merchants will continue to refine their skills. the market will grow and change, and you will have to adapt, just as you've done every year before. The burden of the road. As night falls, and the bustling market begins to quiet, you pack up your cart, securing your goods for the night. The air is cooler now, and the sounds of the market gradually fade away, leaving behind the soft murmur of distant voices and the occasional creak of wagons. You've made your sales for the day, and although it's been a profitable day, there is still the long road ahead. Tomorrow, you'll set off for another town, another market. The life of a traveling merchant is never settled, never still. It's a life that demands constant movement, a life of uncertainty where every journey could either lead to success or ruin. You take a moment to rest by the fire in the inn where you've stayed, the warmth of the flames offering a brief respite from the chill of the evening air. The innkeeper offers you a meal, simple fare, but enough to sustain you for the night. As you eat, you think about the road ahead, about the endless stretches of unfamiliar towns, markets and faces. Every journey is a gamble. Some towns are more profitable than others, and some markets are swarming with competitors, making it harder to secure a good deal. It's a life filled with risks, but it's also a life of freedom, a life that allows you to see the world, to meet new people, and to experience the pulse of the empire from one market to the next. But freedom comes with its own burdens. You live on the edge of uncertainty, never knowing when you'll encounter thieves on the road, or when a poor sale will send you scrambling for resources. The money you've made today will be spent tomorrow on supplies, on food, on lodging, and the cycle repeats itself. There is little room for error in the life of a traveling merchant. A bad day can lead to weeks of struggle, while a good day offers just enough to keep you moving to the next town. As you lie down to sleep in the small, humble inn, you can't help but think of the other merchants, those who settle in cities, those who build stores and businesses that cater to the growing population of the empire. They have stability, a foundation, something that you as a traveling merchant can never have. But stability is not what you seek. Your world is one of movement, one of constant change, and that is both exhilarating and exhausting. You rely on your wits, your charm, and your ability to read a market. But there is a quiet loneliness to this life, an isolation that comes from being a perpetual stranger in every town you visit. As you close your eyes, the sounds of the road echo in your mind, the creak of the cart, the shuffle of your horse's hooves on the dirt road, the murmur of distant voices, and the rustling of market tents. It's a rhythm you've grown accustomed to, a rhythm that drives you forward even when the world outside seems uncertain. The road may never feel like home, but it's the only life you know, and you have learned to thrive within it. The mundane life of ancient architects, crafting monuments to the gods. The groundbreaking work. The sun is high in the sky, its heat pressing down upon you as you survey the massive construction site. The foundations of the temple are slowly taking shape, and you can feel the weight of your work. You are an architect, but not the kind of architect who designs buildings that people live in. No, you design monuments for the gods, structures that will stand as a testament to their greatness for centuries to come. The stone you work with is heavy, the labor is grueling, and the pressure to create something worthy of the divine is immense. Yet, in the grand scheme of things, your work is often unseen, overshadowed by the grandeur of the monuments themselves. You walk through the site, your sandals kicking up dust as the laborers continue their work. The sound of chisels against stone fills the air, the sharp rhythm of the hammering resonating in your bones. The massive blocks of limestone are being shaped into walls, columns and statues that will one day fill the temple. Each piece is carefully measured, each stone placed with precision. The gods, after all, demand perfection. The other architects are busy at their stations, sketching plans, calculating measurements, and making adjustments as the work progresses. You oversee their efforts, checking the alignment of the stones, the angles of the walls, and the positioning of the columns. The smallest mistake could mean the collapse of the structure, and with it, your reputation. It is a pressure that is felt by all involved, but one that must be borne in silence. The gods do not tolerate mistakes, and neither do the pharaohs, who commission these grand projects. As you inspect the progress, you can't help but think about the vastness of the task before you. The temple is meant to honor the god of the sun, Ra, and it must reflect his power and majesty. You've seen other temples rise before this one, each one more impressive than the last. The work of the ancient architects, their dedication to the gods, is what has allowed the empire to thrive. These structures will stand long after you are gone, long after the empire itself has faded into history. But even as you labor on this grand project, you are aware that your name will never be remembered. It is the gods who will be praised, not the hands that built their homes. The pressure of perfection. The day stretches on under the relentless sun, and the labor does not stop. You watch as the workers continue to lift the massive stone blocks, their muscles straining with the effort, their sweat mixing with the dust in the air. Every movement, every action, every detail must be perfect. The temple you are constructing must reflect the divine order of the gods, and any miscalculation, any flaw, could jeopardize the entire structure. The pressure weighs heavily on your shoulders, but you know there is no choice but to continue. The work must go on. The overseers walk through the site with their sharp eyes, inspecting every stone, every line, every angle. They ask questions, they point out minor mistakes, and their voices echo in the air, demanding nothing short of perfection. The gods demand it, the pharaoh demands it, and you, as the architect, are responsible for making it happen. You are more than just a designer, you are the one who will be remembered, or forgotten, based on the success or failure of this grand project. You move through the construction site, checking the plans, adjusting measurements, and ensuring that the work aligns with the vision you've created. You've spent countless hours drafting, revising and reworking your design. But now, in the heat of the moment, in the midst of the physical labor, it all seems so far away. The plans, the ideas, the sketches, they seem like distant dreams compared to the stone, the sweat and the fire of creation. The temple is no longer just a design. It is a living, breathing entity, shaped by the hands of thousands of workers and guided by the unrelenting force of your will. As you inspect the stones that are being placed, you catch a glimpse of the workers who are shaping them. Their faces are tired, their hands calloused, but their work is careful. Each chisel strike is measured, each movement deliberate. They are following your instructions, but in the end, it is their skill, their effort, that will shape this monument. You realize that the temple is not just a reflection of the gods, it is a reflection of the people who build it, of the countless nameless hands that will never be celebrated. They are the true architects, the ones who bring your designs to life. The afternoon passes in a blur of activity. The workers toil tirelessly, the overseers inspect, and you continue to make adjustments, ensuring that the temple rises as it should. The sounds of hammering and chiseling fill the air, and the temperature seems to rise with each passing hour. The weight of the task grows heavier, but there is no time for hesitation. You cannot afford to slow down. The deadline looms, and the pharaoh's eyes are ever watchful. The legacy and stone. The sun begins to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows over the construction site. The workers, exhausted but determined, continue their labor. The temple is starting to take shape. The pillars rise majestically from the ground. The walls begin to stretch higher, and the carvings on the stone are slowly emerging, each intricate design a testament to the skill of the artisans who have brought your plans to life. But even as the temple grows, there is no sense of relief for you. It is far from complete, and the pressure remains unyielding. You stand at the edge of the construction site, watching as the final pieces of the day are put into place. The air is thick with the scent of stone dust and the heat of the fire used to harden the material. The sound of chisel against stone is a constant hum in your ears, and the rhythm of the workers is like a heartbeat that echoes through the site. The building feels alive, almost sentient, as though it is growing and evolving with each stroke of the hammer, each turn of the wheel. You think about the generations of architects and craftsmen who have built structures like this, the great temples and monuments that have stood the test of time. They have all shared the same unspoken truth. The work is never truly finished. No matter how grand the building becomes, there is always another detail to perfect, another stone to carve, another line to straighten. The gods demand nothing less than perfection, and it is up to you, the architect, to make sure that every stone, every measurement, is in place. The weight of the task is never far from your mind. As the workers begin to pack up for the day, you take a moment to reflect on the work that has been done, The temple is not just a physical structure, it is a symbol of power, of devotion, of the gods who will one day inhabit it. But it is also a symbol of your life. The hours you have spent planning, the endless calculations, the sleepless nights, you have poured everything into this project. And yet, when the temple is finished, when it is complete, your name will not be remembered. The gods will be praised, the pharaoh will be honored, and the laborers who carried the stones will be forgotten. You will fade into the background, your work outliving you, but your legacy invisible to all but the stones you leave behind. Tomorrow, the work will begin again. The sun will rise, and the workers will return, continuing their efforts, and you will remain here, overseeing the progress, adjusting the plans, and ensuring that the temple rises as it should. The cycle will continue, and your place in history will remain as anonymous as the thousands of laborers who have built the empire. The sound of the streets, the daily life of medieval townsfolk. The morning chime, the first light of dawn breaks over the town, the streets coming to life with the sound of the bell tolling from the church tower. The bell's deep, steady ring marks the start of another busy day, filling the air with a sense of purpose and routine. As the town slowly wakes up, the streets are filled with the sounds of activity, horses' hooves clattering against cobblestone, merchants calling out their wares, and the faint hum of workers heading to their trades. You, like many others, begin your day early. The small home you share with your family is simple, with rough-hewn walls and a fire that barely keeps the chill at bay. You've been awake for hours, the early morning light already creeping through the cracks in the wooden shutters. The smell of bread and stew hangs in the air from the previous night, and you quickly prepare for the day ahead. The market is just down the street, and it is where you will spend most of your day. As you walk through the narrow alleys, you hear the familiar sounds of the town stirring to life, the creaking of wooden carts, the murmur of neighbors greeting one another, the clang of metal as the blacksmith prepares for another day. The streets are never truly quiet in a medieval town. They are filled with the noise of life, the sounds of survival, of work, of the constant hum that makes the town tick. You pass the baker's stall, where the warm smell of freshly baked bread wafts through the air. It's a small luxury, but one you appreciate. You greet the baker, exchanging pleasantries as you pick up a loaf for your family's breakfast. The exchange is simple, a quick barter of coins for bread, but it's one that helps keep the town running. The baker's bread fuels the people who work the land, who craft the goods, who build the structures that make up the town. Each person, no matter how small their role, contributes to the larger machine that is the town. As you move further into the market square, you see the blacksmith hard at work, his hammer striking an iron rod with a steady rhythm. The sound of metal on metal echoes in the streets, a constant reminder of the work that sustains the town. You stop for a moment to watch as he shapes a new horseshoe, his brow furrowed in concentration. The blacksmith is a vital figure in the community. His work provides the tools for farming, the horseshoes for transportation, and the weapons for defense. His labor is not glamorous, but it is essential. The unseen labor, the market is now bustling, the sounds louder and more frantic as the day progresses. The familiar rhythm of barter fills the air, the haggling, the clinking of coins, the occasional shout of a vendor drawing attention to their wares. You set up your own stall in a corner of the market, arranging your goods neatly. Your wares are simple, handmade tools, small pots, and occasionally some herbs, but they are vital to the lives of the townsfolk. You know the value of your goods, even if no one else acknowledges it outright. The workers around you are busy with their own tasks, each of them performing a small part of a much larger system that keeps the town running. The town is a living, breathing organism, and each person, no matter how humble their role, plays an essential part. The butcher sharpens his knives in the stall across from you, the tailor hammers away at a new garment, and the cobbler carefully stitches a new pair of shoes. Each piece of work, no matter how small, contributes to the well-being of the town. But as you watch the other townsfolk, you realize that much of the work that sustains the town is invisible. The men and women who sweep the streets, who carry the heavy loads, who repair the buildings, these people rarely receive any recognition for their efforts. They are the foundation of the town, and yet they are often overlooked. As you sit at your stall, you think of the unseen labor that happens behind the scenes. The ones who work to maintain the roads, to keep the water flowing, to ensure that the town remains clean and orderly. You have spent years working in the market, making your living from your wares, but you know that your role too is a small piece of something much larger. The merchant who sells fine cloth, the baker who makes the bread, the brewer who creates the ale. They all contribute to the flow of goods and services that keep the town alive. But it is the unseen workers, the ones who labor in the shadows, that truly keep the town running. Without them, the streets would be filled with trash, the homes would fall into disrepair, and the market would come to a standstill. These people, who work without recognition, are the unsung heroes of the town. As the sun moves across the sky and the day begins to wind down, you can't help but feel a sense of pride. You may not be the most important person in the market, but you are part of the lifeblood of the town. The work you do, whether it's selling your wares or helping others with small tasks, is vital to the community's survival. The town relies on people like you, the everyday workers, who keep things moving, who carry the weight of the daily grind, the legacy of everyday lives. The sun is now setting, casting a warm glow over the town, as the market begins to empty. The last few vendors pack up their goods, the noise of the day slowly fading into the evening quiet. The streets are quieter now, with only a few townsfolk lingering, traders finishing their last deals, children playing in the fading light, and workers heading home after a long day of labor. The town, once alive with the clamor of commerce and work, now feels like a different place, a quiet reflection of the bustle that came before. As you gather your remaining goods and prepare to leave the market, you can't help but reflect on the day. It has been another long, hard day, just like so many others before it. The rhythm of your life has been defined by this steady flow of work, the mundane tasks that fill your days and allow the town to function. You sell your wares, you barter, you help those in need, and you go home to your small cottage to rest, only to wake up the next day and do it all over again. The work may seem simple, even insignificant, but as the day ends, you realize that the town would not function without the collective effort of everyone. It is the quiet labor of the townsfolk, the street sweepers, the potters, the bakers, the merchants that makes the town thrive. Without their everyday efforts, the market would be empty, the streets would be filthy, and the homes would fall into disrepair. The unsung workers are the backbone of the town, and yet their names will never be written in the history books. The town's growth and survival are built on their quiet, invisible labor. As you walk home through the now empty streets, you notice the familiar faces of the people you've seen all day, workers, neighbors, and friends. They move with purpose, each of them heading back to their own lives, their own families, their own small routines. The streets, though quiet now, will soon fill with life again. Tomorrow, they will return to their work, just as you will. The town will continue to hum with activity, the rhythms of daily life uninterrupted. You pass by the blacksmith shop, where the sound of hammering is now replaced by the quiet of a well-earned rest. You hear the low murmur of conversation from the tavern, where townsfolk unwind after a long day. The life of the town continues just as it always has, driven by the quiet, repetitive tasks of its people. The bells of the church tower ring softly in the distance, marking the end of another day, another cycle in the life of the town. The silent revolution, how small skirmishes led to empire expansion. The tension of the borderlands. The sun rises slowly over the dusty, dry plains, casting a muted light over the land that seems to stretch endlessly. The air is still and hot, the kind of heat that makes the ground shimmer in the distance. You are at the edge of the empire, stationed in a small fort that has seen more than its fair share of skirmish. The fort's walls are sturdy but worn, the stonework chipped from countless years of service, and the guards stationed on the ramparts shift uneasily, scanning the horizon for any sign of trouble. Today, like every day, you wake to the sound of the early morning bell, the call to arms that rouses you from your sleep. The empire, vast and powerful, seems so far away here. In these dusty, forgotten lands, the people you protect are simple farmers, traders and craftsmen, those who are too far from the heart of the empire to know the grandeur of the emperor's court. They don't think about the politics of the empire, the shifting alliances, or the grand battles that echo through the streets of the capital. They only think about survival, about the crops that must be harvested, the families that must be protected, and the daily grind of life in a frontier town. As you step outside, the heat hits you immediately. It's a dry heat, the kind that clings to your skin and makes it difficult to breathe. You join the other soldiers, walking in formation as the day's drills begin. The fort, though small, is essential to maintaining the Empire's control over these lands. The governor is far away, and the Emperor doesn't concern himself with these border territories. They are forgotten, isolated, and left to fend for themselves, with only the soldiers like you standing guard. The fort is surrounded by farmland, small villages that are vulnerable to raids by local tribes and rival factions. These are not grand battles, not the kind that will be written about in history books, but skirmishes, fights that occur in the shadow of larger wars when the Empire is too distracted by other concerns to truly protect the borders. Yet these small skirmishes matter. They are the silent revolutions, the battles fought in the background, the moments that slowly push the Empire's borders further and further out. The outcome of these conflicts may not change the course of history, but they shape the very foundation of the Empire. Every victory, every minor skirmish, adds a little more to the Empire's vast expanse, quietly expanding the realm without ever making headlines. As the day progresses, you hear the distant sounds of horn signals from the outer watchmen. The tension in the air shifts, a quiet unease spreading through the fort. The rumors are true. There is movement along the border, a small raiding party perhaps, or a rival faction testing the Empire's defenses. It's always the same out here in these far-off lands. The tribes know the Empire's forces are stretched thin, and they take advantage of that weakness. But it is your job to ensure that these small skirmishes don't turn into something larger, something that could threaten the Empire's stability. The small battle that shaped the border. The day's heat continues to press down as you and your comrades gather at the fort's edge. The distant sounds of a small skirmish reach your ears, the crackling of underbrush as horses thunder by, the distant shouts of your soldiers calling out command. This is not a grand battle. There are no charges, no massive clashes, but it is just as important. Your role is simple: protect the people, fend off the raiders, and keep the border secure. The enemy is small, perhaps only a few dozen, but they are persistent. The Empire's reach doesn't extend far enough to prevent these attacks, and it's up to you to make sure that these small attacks don't lead to larger revolts. You take your place, your sword at your side and your shield ready. The soldiers move into position, preparing to meet the raiders as they approach. You can see the dust cloud in the distance, the shape of men on horseback slowly taking form. The battle begins quickly, chaotic, swift and loud. There is no time for strategy, no time for the careful planning that comes with larger battles. This is pure survival. You meet the enemy in the open fields, the sun blinding in its intensity as you charge forward. The sound of hooves on dirt fills the air, the clash of metal and the sharp cries of battle ringing in your ears. The raiders are quick, their movements fluid, but they are outnumbered. This is not the first time they've come to test the Empire's defenses, and it won't be the last. You fight alongside your comrades, each strike a push toward ensuring the continued safety of the border. It is brutal work, exhausting and relentless. There is little glory to be had here, no chance for a hero's welcome, no banners flying or medals being handed out. This is just another day in the life of a soldier on the frontier, where the work is hard and the recognition is little. The skirmish is short but violent, and when it's over, there are bodies to clean up, injured men to tend to, and the quiet realization that these small battles are what keep the Empire expanding. The raiders are pushed back, but they will return. They always do. The Empire, vast as it is, cannot stretch itself thin enough to protect every corner of the land, and so it is up to men like you to hold the line, to ensure that the Empire's reach continues, even if it's one small skirmish at a time. You look around at the wounded, the exhausted soldiers, and the scattered remains of the raiders. There is no sense of victory, only the knowledge that you've done your duty. The fight is over, but tomorrow another skirmish may arise, and you will be ready to meet it. The Empire's borders may seem stable, but it is the unseen struggles, the quiet battles like this one, that hold it together. Every victory, no matter how small, pushes the Empire's influence just a little bit further. The forgotten heroes of Empire. The days pass, and the rhythm of life on the frontier continues. Long, grueling hours spent defending the border, small skirmishes, and raids becoming the backdrop to the lives of soldiers like you. The town near the fort is growing, more settlers arriving, more families choosing to live along the empire's edge. There is a sense of movement here, of expansion. You can see it in the faces of the people who walk the streets of the fort, their hopes tied to the idea that the empire will continue to grow, that the land will be secure. But for men like you, the work is never glamorous. You are the unseen soldiers, the forgotten guardians of the empire's expansion. The generals and the pharaohs will write the history books. They will tell of the great battles, the glorious victories, and the power of the empire. But it is soldiers like you who make it all possible. The small skirmishes, the constant vigilance, the hours spent watching over fields, the days spent trudging through mud and dust, will never be remembered. Yet without these small actions, the empire could never have expanded. It is the quiet work, the small victories, that build the foundation of empire. You sit by the campfire that night, the sound of crackling wood filling the air. The men around you are tired, their faces weary, but there is a quiet satisfaction in their expression. They know that they've protected the frontier, that they've ensured another day of safety for the people of the empire. Yet, even as they sit there, their stories will never be written in the great history of the empire. The kings, the generals, the grand victories, they will be immortalized. But for those who fight in the shadows, their names will fade away, lost to time. As you think about the work you do, the sacrifices, the small victories that no one ever notices, you realize that this is what empire is built on: the unnoticed labor, the quiet struggles, the sacrifices of ordinary men and women who have no other choice but to keep pushing forward. The expansion of the empire doesn't come from grand speeches or battlefields drenched in glory. It comes from the small skirmishes, the daily work of those who keep the empire's borders intact, one struggle at a time. Through the dust of history, a day in the life of ancient Egypt, the early morning ritual, the first light of dawn breaks over the horizon, casting the land in a warm golden glow. The Nile River, still and reflective, shimmers under the rising sun. It is the beginning of another day in ancient Egypt, and you, like so many others, wake early to the sound of the first birds and the rustle of reeds in the breeze. The air is thick with the scent of earth and water as you prepare for the day. Your home, a modest mud brick structure, is simple but sturdy. The walls are rough, the floors uneven, but it is shelter, and it is yours. You share this space with your family, each of you waking at the same hour to begin your tasks. The early morning hours are sacred in Egypt, where the gods govern every aspect of life, and their favor must be sought with rituals and offerings. The air is cool, and you rise from your mat, stretching your tired limbs, preparing to face the day's work. The first task is the offering. You gather small offerings of fruit, grains, and incense, and make your way to the small shrine in the corner of your home. There, you pray to the gods, Ra, Osiris, and the others, offering your thanks for the blessings of the past, and asking for their favor in the coming day. The gods are always watching, and their influence is felt in every grain of sand, every drop of water. To live in Egypt is to live in constant communion with the divine, and to ignore the gods is to risk their wrath. Once the offerings are made, the real work begins. You step outside, the warmth of the sun already starting to make itself felt. The land, though fertile, is hard work. The fields of crops need tending. The water must be channeled from the Nile to nourish the crops, and the animals need care. You head to the fields, joining your neighbors and family members, and begin the day's labor. The rhythm of the work is familiar: planting, tending, and harvesting, day after day, season after season. It is the foundation of your life, and it has been this way for generations. The fields stretch before you, the soil rich with the nutrients that the Nile provides during the yearly flooding. The work is demanding, the labor intense, but the rewards are worth it. The gods smile upon those who work the land, and the harvest is the greatest blessing one can receive. The rhythm of life is simple but unyielding. Work the fields, feed the family, honor the gods, and repeat. The divine and the mundane. The sun climbs higher, its heat intensifying as the day progresses. The work in the fields continues, the rhythm of life never ceasing, but there is a sense of reverence in the air, a quiet acknowledgement that all labor, no matter how mundane, is an offering to the gods. Every stroke of the hoe, every grain of wheat harvested, every plant watered, each act is imbued with meaning. You cannot help but feel a connection to the generations of people who have worked this land, who have lived by the same rhythms, who have prayed to the same gods. As you work the fields, you think about the larger world of Egypt, the temples that rise in the distance, the pharaohs who rule the land, and the great cities that fill the banks of the Nile. You, like many others, will never see the grandeur of these places. Your life is simple, lived in the quiet corners of the kingdom. But you know that without people like you, the farmers, the laborers, the empire would not survive. The pharaoh's monuments may stand tall, but they are built on the backs of people like you, who toil in the fields and bring forth the bounty that feeds the kingdom. Your thoughts are interrupted by the sound of a priest approach. His robes are rich, and he carries a small offering basket filled with incense and fruits for the gods. The priest, with his solemn expression, walks toward the riverbank, where the water has begun to recede after the flooding. He dips his fingers into the Nile, performing the daily rituals to ensure the gods are pleased. The river is sacred, life flows from it, and its waters provide sustenance to all. You watch the priest from a distance, his gestures graceful and deliberate. The ritual a reminder that Egypt's greatness is built not just on human labor, but on divine favor. You return to your work, but the priest's presence lingers in your mind. The gods are always watching, their favor given or withheld according to the quality of your work, the sincerity of your devotion. To live in Egypt is to live in constant awareness of the divine. Every action, no matter how small, is seen by the god. Even the simplest task, whether it is tending to the crops or caring for the animals, is part of a larger cosmic order. You do not work alone. The gods are with you, guiding your hands, ensuring that the harvest will come, that the animals will thrive, that the land will remain fertile. As the afternoon wears on, the labor grows harder, the heat pressing down on you with an intensity that only the Egyptian sun can provide. But there is a rhythm to it, a flow that is both exhausting and comforting. You know your place in this world, and while your life may seem small and insignificant to those in the grand cities, it is just as vital. You are part of the great machine of Egypt, the endless cycle of work, devotion, and survival that has sustained this land for centuries. The unseen continuity. As the sun begins its descent and the heat of the day gradually eases, the rhythm of the work slows, but it never truly stops. You wipe your brow, your body aching from the labor, and take a moment to drink from the cool waters of the Nile. The evening air carries a soft breeze, a welcome relief after the blistering heat of the day. The sounds of the town come to life as the evening meal is prepared and families gather together. You can hear the chatter of neighbors, the laughter of children, and the distant calls of the marketplace, where the day's goods are exchanged. The day's work in the fields has been long and demanding, but there is a quiet satisfaction in knowing that you've contributed to the ongoing rhythm of life. As the sun sets, the moment of rest feels earned. Yet there is always the reminder that tomorrow the cycle will begin again. Another day, another round of work, of devotion, of surviving under the watchful eyes of the gods. As you head back to your small home, you pass by the modest temple where offerings are made daily to the gods. The smell of incense hangs in the air, and the faint sounds of prayer echo softly from within. You pause for a moment, taking in the tranquility of the place. It is here, in these small acts of worship, that the connection between human labor and the divine is made manifest. The offerings you give are not just symbols, they are the substance of your existence, woven into the fabric of every action, every task, every day. You cannot help but think about the future, the children who will grow up on this land, the generations that will carry forward the same rituals, the same labor, and the same devotion to the gods. Your children, no doubt, will take up the same work, continuing the cycle that has been passed down through the ages. Egypt's greatness, is not just in its monuments or its rulers, but in the unbroken continuity of its people. The labor of the peasants, the devotion of the priests, the work of the architects and craftsmen, all of it binds Egypt together, creating a legacy that will endure long after the gods have passed from memory. As you sit with your family, the evening meal before you, you think about the days ahead, the life you lead, though simple, is part of something much greater. The empire, with its kings and pyramids, may seem distant from this humble village, but it is built upon the unremarkable, everyday lives of people like you. It is the work of the common folk, the ones who till the soil, build the temples, and offer their devotion, that holds Egypt together. Though the pharaohs may come and go, though empires may rise and fall, it is the continuity of this simple, divine labor that endures. The Silent Revolution. How small skirmishes led to empire expansion. Section 1. The Battle of the Unseen. The early morning light filters through the trees as you stand at the edge of the small settlement, watching the distant horizon. The village, though quiet, feels alive with the tension of what is to come. The empire's reach is vast, but here, on the border, it is fragile. Small skirmishes like the one you are preparing for might not make history books, but they are the ones that ensure the empire's borders stretch further each year. These small conflicts, fought in the shadows of larger wars, are the ones that shape the empire's destiny. The enemy you face today is no great army. There are no grand generals or powerful kings leading the charge. Instead, you face a small band of rebels, tribesmen, and deserters, who seek to carve out their own piece of the land. They are nothing compared to the might of the empire, but they are persistent. The empire, though powerful, cannot extend its full strength to protect every border. It is here, in places like this, that the battle for empire expansion truly happens. It is in these quiet, unseen battles that the empire's legacy is made. You are a soldier, but more than that, you are a part of the unseen forces that drive the expansion of the empire. You do not fight for glory, nor for the chance to be remembered in songs or stories. You fight because the empire requires it. The empire grows not just through great conquests, but through these small struggles, these quiet victories that allow the borders to stretch further, pushing the unknown back a little at a time. The skirmish you are about to face will not be remembered by history, but it will be remembered by the people here, the ones who will continue to live under the empire's rule, protected by your sacrifice and the work of countless others like you. As you prepare for the fight, you can hear the sound of your comrades moving into position. The tension in the air is palpable. Everyone knows what is at stake, even if no one will ever tell the story of this small battle. It's a fight that must be won, not for the glory but for the future. Without these victories, the empire would crumble. It is through these small struggles that the foundations of the empire are laid. The hidden cost of expansion. The clash is swift, the sound of metal against metal ringing out over the quiet landscape. The enemy, though few in number, are skilled in battle, moving with a fluidity that speaks of years spent in skirmishes like this. But you and your comrades are well trained, prepared for the intensity of the fight. The battle is not about strategy or glory, it's about survival, about maintaining the empire's hold on this distant stretch of land. The skirmish is over, as quickly as it began. The rebels are pushed back, scattered, their resistance broken. Yet, there is no victory to celebrate, no triumph to savor. The cost is immediate and tangible. The bodies of fallen comrades lie in the dirt, their lives extinguished in the name of empire expansion. The enemy's dead are no less numerous, their blood staining the earth beneath you. The silence that follows the clash is not one of peace, but of a world that continues to move forward, despite the sacrifice. You stand among the fallen, the weight of the battle pressing down on you. The rebels, though defeated, were once men and women who fought for a cause they believed in. They were not villains, but victims of a larger, unstoppable force, the empire. Their lands, their way of life were no match for the growing power of the empire, and their struggle was but a small, brief attempt to reclaim what they had lost. It is the nature of empire to swallow what stands in its way, to expand its borders through the bloodshed of those who resist. You glance at your comrades, some attending to the wounded, others cleaning their weapons, but there is no joy in their actions. This battle was just one more in a long line of struggles that shaped the empire's expansion. The cost of each skirmish, though not recorded in history books, is felt by the people who live in the shadow of the empire. For each soldier who falls, for each family torn apart by the violence, the empire grows a little larger, but the price of that growth is high. You think about the towns and villages that will now fall under the empire's control, the people who will live under the rule of a distant emperor. never knowing the struggle that brought them there. The gods may look favorably upon the empire, but it is the blood of the common people, the farmers, the merchants, the soldiers, that sustains it. Every victory, no matter how small, is another piece of land claimed, another step toward the empire's inevitable future. But for those who fight and die in these small, unseen battles, there is no glory, no recognition. There is only the slow, grinding work of empire building. The forgotten legacy. The days following the skirmish are filled with the quiet aftermath of victory. The wounded are cared for, the dead are buried, and the fort returns to its routine. The enemy is no longer a threat, but the quiet tension of the border remains, a reminder that these small battles are never truly over. Another attack could come at any time, another group of rebels could rise, and the cycle would begin again. The empire's borders are always in flux, constantly pushed outward by small, unseen struggles like the one you just fought. You walk through the camp, the weight of the previous days pressing down on you. The soldiers are going about their duties, mending armor, sharpening swords, repairing the fortifications. There is no time for rest, no time for mourning. The empire moves forward, and so must its soldiers. Every skirmish, no matter how small, contributes to the slow, steady expansion of the empire. But no one will remember these battles. No one will honor the soldiers who fought and died for a piece of land that will soon be forgotten. The world outside the fort is quiet again, but there is a new tension in the air. The people who live on these borders, the farmers and villagers who will now live under the empire's rule, will continue their lives as if nothing has changed. They will till the soil, harvest the crops, and raise their families. To them, the empire is an abstract concept, something distant and unchanging. They will never know the cost of the land they now occupy, nor will they understand the sacrifices made by those who fought to expand the empire. It is the way of the world. The winners are remembered, the losers fade into obscurity, and the people who live in between are forgotten. As the sun sets over the fort, you stand at the edge of the camp, looking out over the land that has been claimed. The smoke from the campfires rises in the air, the soldiers' voices growing softer as the night settles in. You think of the countless men and women who have fought in these small, forgotten skirmishes, those who have died for a cause that no one will remember. You think of the generations of soldiers who will follow in your footsteps, fighting the same quiet battles, pushing the borders of the empire outward, piece by piece. The backroads of history, everyday lives behind famous discoveries, the uncelebrated path. You wake early, as always, before the light has fully reached the sky. The house is still, save for the sounds of the morning ritual, the crackling of the fire, the scraping of tools, the quiet murmur of work starting in the dim light. Your hands, worn from years of labor, move with practiced precision, preparing the materials for today's task. The work is not glamorous, but it is important. In the quiet of your workshop, far from the halls of power or the bustling streets of the city, you shape the discoveries that will one day change the world, or at least you hope they will. You are not a famous inventor, nor a renowned scholar. You are a craftsman, a maker of tools, a fabricator of ideas that others will later claim as their own. You have always been on the edges of history, never in its spotlight. The world will know of the great minds who shape the future, but it will rarely remember the hands that made the tools that allowed them to do so. Today, you begin work on a simple instrument, a mechanism that will help measure the stars. It is an ordinary task, but for you, it is no less important than the great discoveries of your time. The work will take hours, days, weeks, but in the end, it will be the key to understanding something bigger than you. As you sit at your workbench, the sound of chiseling and filing fills the room, the materials slowly coming together into a precision tool. The world outside seems distant, a blur of noise and movement that you are not a part of. The scholars in the city are discussing their theories, their grand ideas, but it is you, the one working in the silence of your shop, who will provide the means to bring those ideas into reality. They will take the credit. Yes, they always do, but without your work, their theories would remain just that, theories, not discoveries. The world remembers the discoverers, not the ones who quietly enable them. But you know the truth. You know that the path to discovery is paved with the tools of the humble craftsman. As the day stretches on, the work continues. It is not easy. Every measurement, every angle, must be perfect. The slightest mistake could result in failure, but the work is familiar, and it brings a deep satisfaction, a satisfaction that the scholars, the kings, the rulers, may never understand. They sit in their grand chambers, discussing their ideas, while you here in your quiet workshop shape the very tools that will bring their ideas to life. The builders of foundations. The evening sets in, and the glow of the firelight casts long shadows across your workshop. The tool you've crafted is near completion now, the delicate parts all aligning with careful precision. You take a moment to step back, admiring your work, though it is a quiet, personal satisfaction. The discovery it will help bring about will not bear your name, nor will the credit for its creation. In fact, it will likely be attributed to the great scholars and explorers who will use it to chart their theories. Yet, in your heart, you know that without your craftsmanship, none of it would be possible. As you finish polishing the tool, the weight of its purpose settles in. This is not just a device, it is part of something much bigger. It will aid in discovering new truths, but those truths will not be yours to claim. It is a paradox. The tools you create are crucial, but the creators, the discoverers, will take the glory. Your work will be swallowed by time, forgotten and uncelebrated. Yet, without it, the discoveries would remain out of reach. There is something beautiful in the silence of your role, in the knowledge that you are part of something larger, even if you are invisible in the grand story. As you prepare to leave for the day, you pass by the streets of the village. The sounds of chatter, the calls of children playing, and the rhythm of everyday life fill the air. No one knows what you've accomplished today, just as no one knew what you accomplished yesterday. The life of a craftsman is a quiet one, defined by the small acts of labor that enable great things to happen. But in the grand scheme of the world, the worker's name is lost to history. Only the inventions, the ideas, and the grand discoveries remain. The scholars, the thinkers, the great minds of the time will speak of their ideas, but they will never speak of the tools that made those ideas possible. They will be remembered for the breakthroughs they brought into the world, but the ones who crafted the means to realize those breakthroughs will fade into the shadows. The tools you create are not only instruments, they are the bridges between imagination and reality. Yet in the eyes of history, the creators of those tools will be forgotten, while the discoverers of the truths will be immortalized. The unseen legacy. The days pass, each one indistinguishable from the last, as the tool you've crafted begins to serve its purpose. You can hear the distant hum of scholars in the town, their voices filled with excitement as they use the very instrument you made to further their studies. You hear whispers of discoveries being made, of theories proven, and new knowledge uncovered. But though you know that your work has contributed to these great moments, your name is never mentioned. You are nothing more than the unseen hand that enabled their success, and you are content with that, or so you tell yourself. The tool, now in use by those who will take the credit for its discoveries, is quietly shaping the world. As the scholars make their marks in history, they are unknowingly standing on the shoulders of people like you, the quiet creators, the ones who make the grand ideas possible. Yet your work will never be immortalized. There are no statues for the craftsmen, no grand speeches in honor of their quiet contributions. They are just the silent facilitators of history, their names lost to time. You visit the market one day, the same familiar streets and faces. The rhythm of daily life continues unabated. The merchants are selling their wares, the children are playing, and the elders sit in the shade, exchanging stories. No one notices you, no one knows the work you've done. But you see the scholars, who have become celebrated, walking through the streets, their heads high with the pride of their discoveries. You recognize the tool you made in their hands, but you are invisible. They are seen, their discoveries celebrated, and you, the one who made it all possible, remain in the background, a forgotten figure in the grand narrative of history. As you return to your workshop that night, the weight of your existence begins to settle in. The work you do will never be written about in history books. It will never be part of the great stories that are passed down through the ages. the legacy of your craft will be forgotten, replaced by the names of those who took credit for the discoveries. Yet, in the quiet corners of the world, the tools you crafted will continue to serve, enabling others to explore, to discover, to understand the mysteries of the world. And though you are not remembered, you know that without you none of it would have been possible.